So welcome everybody to Soul Solutions Talks. And tonight I'm really pleased to welcome Linda Sewell to come and give you a talk tonight. And Linda runs the Cygnus Cafe, where she's invited me to do various talks in person and on Zoom over the years. So it's really lovely to be the other way around and actually introducing you tonight instead, Linda. I'm going to let you tell everybody all about all the wonderful work you do. It's really lovely and really interesting. So over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Suzanne. And yeah, this is a bit strange really, because I usually do the introducing and now I feel, well, anyway, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you also for sharing your time with me, and that's thank you to each and every one of you for being here with me this evening. So I hope that I will share with you a little bit of knowledge, certainly some experiences, possibly a little bit of wisdom, and maybe shatter one or two myths. I don't know, we'll see. But my name is Linda. I am a Harry Edwards healer. I'm also a professional independent celebrant. And some of you may know me through Harry Edwards from the Cygnus Cafe mornings. So it really sort of starts with the healing journey, I suppose. And that is a long one. And I think anybody who's on any kind of spiritual path or looking to develop spiritually, usually it starts with something that wasn't, well, they didn't think was in their life plan A, B or C even. It's usually something fairly major that maybe prompts this road, this learning, this discovery. And I was jogging along quite happily. I had a background in corporate. I'd worked for a major bank for many years, always in marketing or customer interface roles. And then when I was made redundant, I went to work in education and did lots of different roles within schools at all different levels, a lot of event management. And yeah, life was just jogging along. And then in 2008, we had, as a family, the most dreadful tragedy, because we lost our 19-year-old son in an accident. And he was 6'4", he was fit, he was healthy, he was a huge rugby fan. He'd gone on an 8-week trip during his gap year before he went to university, to Australia, devoted to New Zealand, and died in an accident. So as you can probably begin to imagine, that turned our world upside down, inside out. Yeah. And that really was what started the journey that ended and started at Harry Edwards, really. A few weeks after we lost our Tom, I was very aware that a lot of his friends were going to another young person's funeral. And I figured that if he was here, he would have gone to this young girl's funeral, and he couldn't. And a little while later, there was a bit of a sponsorship thing going on. There was a sponsored walk for to raise money for epilepsy for this friend of Tom's. So I figured that he would have done that, and he couldn't. So therefore, I should walk in his place. And the result of that was that I met Fee's parents, and we have become, well, we became friends through shared grief, and we were very much a support for each other. But out of that came information, because Fee's father was a spiritual healer, and I heard a lot from him about healing. We went, the three of us, we went to the children's chapel at Guildford one day. We went there because they'd never been to the children's chapel at Guildford Cathedral. And while we were there, a cleric just came in. Don't know where she came from, never saw her before, never seen her since. But she just appeared and said, would the three of you like some healing? And she gave us all healing. So that was my first experience of being given healing. And Fee's dad talked a lot about this sanctuary, Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary at Sheer, and said, you should go, you should really go. And I said, yeah, I will. But everything was so chaotic and was in such a sort of dark pit, really, that I didn't go. And then about a year after we lost our son, an old friend of mine was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it had come back. And it had come back quite aggressively. And I said to her, I've been told about this place, this healing sanctuary, and maybe we should go. And she said, yeah, I'd love to. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll organise it. And in such a state up here that I didn't. Saw her about 6 weeks later, and she was so poorly. And I felt so guilty that I had failed her. And I got on the phone and got appointments the next day, and we were there within 24 hours. She'd been told that she didn't have very long. When we walked down the drive and into Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary for the first time, it felt to me like I was coming home. It felt like this was where I needed to be. And we went really regularly, and she lived for another 5.5 years with spiritual healing, which was amazing, actually, because the everything they'd said to her was really not very good. So that was, part of it. But having gone to Harry Edwards and experienced spiritual healing, and then I was experiencing things there that I couldn't explain. My logical mind was seeing things, and I had no explanation, so I needed to find out more. And that led me to start volunteering there. And then I wanted to find out even more, because I was just experiencing, feeling, seeing stuff that logical mind, And I signed up to do a healing course, and I my husband, my son thought I was completely barking mad. I think they thought I was going to come home on a broomstick. And I can remember coming out of Harry Edwards, having signed up to do this two-year spiritual healing course, and sort of having this little chat with my son in spirit in the car, sort of going, oh, for goodness sake, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this? Is this where I'm supposed to be? I could really do with a sign. I really, really, really could do with a sign. And coming back through the back lanes, the back of Clarendon, I actually had to stop because there was a huge coach doing a 3-point turn, or trying to, into a farm field in this tiny, tiny lane. And the name on the coach was Edward, Thomas and Son. And my son's name is Thomas Edward. And I thought, you know what? I'll take that. As signs go, that's pretty good. Okay, I'll take that. And I did the 2-year healing course, and absolutely loved it. That was such a brilliant experience, and I think it helped me very much in my own grief journey. And there is that whole thing about Chiron, the wounded healers. So that actually was huge, and being at Harry's a lot was absolutely I'd say massive, actually. And then one day I used to get this little magazine, and some of you will know it, of course. So this is the last one. I don't know if you can see that. Cygnus Review still comes out. And a friend very, very early on, after losing Tom, had said to me, oh, you should check out the Cygnus Review. I think you'll like it. There's lots of good articles in it. So I used to get Cygnus Review sent to me. And if you don't know, Cygnus Review was set up as a way of getting books at very reasonable prices, books and other holistic resources to people. And everything in there was always holistic and, really pretty much not profit making. And they said in the newsletter that they realised that a lot of people who read and enjoyed Cygnus Review would like to make contact with other like-minded people, other people that had an interest in all matter spiritual, holistic. So they had this idea of setting up Cygnus communities, if you like, or a Cygnus cafe. And I think their idea, well, I know because I've spoken to Jeff Napier about it, was that small groups would gather, maybe that you'd reach out and maybe find people in your locality who had similar interests, and you'd sit in a room and speak to each other from the heart, which is actually what we're doing now, I guess. And I thought, well, it would be brilliant to do this at Harry Edwards because it's such a beautiful place and it has such wonderful energy. And I said to the healers, what do you think? This would be great. And they said, yeah, it would be. Why don't you organise it? I was going, me, I can't do that. But anyway, I did. And the first one was in July 2015. And there were 6 people came. And I'd put something out and decided that actually we better have a topic, because if I just said, come and speak from the heart, nobody would come. They'd all run a mile. They'd think we were weird. So had a little topic. 6 people came. 2 of them were my cousin and her husband, who were visiting from Australia, and they were staying with me. So they had no choice. They just got dragged along. And it grew from there. And now we're in our 6th year. And the last year we've been online because of the lockdown. And our speakers are always speaking on a topic that the sort of thing that you'd find in Cygnus Review. It's always on a topic that's holistic. Suze has been a regular speaker. I'm absolutely delighted because Kay is coming to speak at the end of March. Originally, we'd only been running once a month, but in lockdown, we've gone a bit more frequently. And in fact, Julia has also presented several times for Cygnus. So it's been a really wonderful experience. But what's been really, really nice is that the magic happens in the tea and the chat afterwards. And you see people connecting, and you can see that they resonate with each other, and you can see that they're finding so much in common with each other. And that's been really fantastic. And it's a community that has grown. It has been actually quite magical. So I think, yeah, if you haven't been along to a Cygnus cafe morning at Harry Edwards, all the talks are recorded and they are on the Harry Edwards YouTube channel. So they're, as I say, better than anything that's on TV. So go and have a watch, because there's been some absolutely brilliant presenters there and so much wisdom shared. So that was how Cygnus started. In the meantime, my dear friends, the Wacketts, the parents of this other young girl who died, Alan very sadly got cancer again, and he passed on. And his widow, Sandy, who's still a wonderful friend, we're very, very close, gave me his healing couch. I was just about to graduate through the healing college at Harry Edwards. And when Alan passed, she contacted me and said, actually, the couch was a present from a healer to Alan. He would want it to go to another healer. He'd be delighted if you had it, and I'd like to give it to you. And I have his healing stool in here as well. So I just feel that that's a real honour that has been passed on, because it was given with love and it's been received with love. And when people are allowed to come in here, then there is a lot of love in this room. You can feel it. So that was that bit. The other thing that grew out of what's happened was an association with the charity, the Compassionate Friends. And you may or may not have heard of that charity, but it is a charity that supports bereaved parents and grandparents and siblings. And it is a peer support charity. And I found TCF fairly early on, a few months after we lost Tom. And I've had quite a long involvement with them. I've written for them. I've had leaflets, literature imprint with them. And I co-facilitate a support group which runs every month for bereaved parents, and every other month that is housed in the Healing Sanctuary at Harry Edwards as well. So I feel that that's a very safe place for people to come, and then that happens on as I say, a monthly basis. But that has been a privilege doing that work, because actually the people that come are so broken and they just need to have that support. So TCF is an absolutely fantastic charity. It's all peer support. And in 2018 and 2019, I was really privileged as a celebrant, actually, to lead a candle lighting ceremony at Clandon Wood for Compassionate Friends. And that's something they do annually in the beginning of December. And the idea is at 7 p.m. on a certain day, all around the world, bereaved parents can light a candle so that the ring of light circles the globe for 24 hours. So that's a really, really special thing. And this year, well, actually, no, it was December last year. It's not this year, December last year. That couldn't happen. We were all booked to be at Clandon Wood and we went into lockdown and couldn't do it. So guess what we did on Zoom? I don't know if you can see that, but Compassionate Friends. It was a first, and I led the candle lighting for the charity, UK charity. And you said you were scared, Suze, about the number of views. Last time I looked, there were about, it wasn't far off 6,000, which is really scary. And I did it from this room. And my main concern was, oh God, I must make sure I don't knock the candles over, because we can't possibly have a fire. It wouldn't be good. It took me ages to get everything set up and get the camera in the right place so that it was all really beautiful. And it was really beautiful. And I know it was really, really well received. So, and I think that was doubly important, because anybody who's bereaved feels isolated anyway. And with lockdown, that just makes it worse, because you're missing your peer support. Okay, so celebrancy. So that was a bit of a departure, because I never thought that this would be something that I would do. I'd worked a lot with people in my other careers, and for years and years and years, I was a professional netball coach, which is one of the reasons that I'm quite broken and arthritic now. Yeah, so I was sort of used to sort of standing up and talking to a group of people. And then, yeah, I don't really know. It sort of started sort of thinking about celebrancy and thinking, yeah, I could do this. I definitely could do this. I think I could possibly bring something to this. And I did. I bit the bullet, and I went and qualified in 2017. So talking a little bit about celebrancy, because a lot of people mistake or they confuse celebrancy with registrars. And I think that's the first thing just to say, because I'm not a registrar. A registrar actually is the official keeper of records. They're the person that makes the legal notes, if you like, all the official records. So particularly sort of births, marriages and deaths. So the registrar looks after all the legal paperwork. And I think it's got a little bit mixed up, because you can obviously be married by a registrar, but that does actually really restrict the sort of ceremony you can have. So as a celebrant, I provide ceremony for all life events, if you like. The other myth, I think, is that all celebrants are humanists. And that is definitely not me. And it's certainly not a lot of, well, some other celebrants. I mean, there are celebrants who are humanists, but I have quite strong spiritual beliefs anyway. So it does give me an advantage, because it means that whatever ceremony I write can be as secular or as spiritual as the family that I'm working with want or require. And the ceremony is important because there are so many moments in life that we mark with ritual and ceremony. And that can be as simple as just the way you make your cup of tea in the morning, or whether you create that sacred space to go and float in a beautiful bath, possibly with a gin and tonic or a glass of wine, in a candle. it's creating a sacred space, and it's how we do it. And when we talk about it all the time as well, it's this ritual is in our language. We talk about rites of passage in our lifetimes, and those are the major life events that we all come to. And I mean, obviously the major ones are the hatched, matched and dispatched. So as a celebrant, those are the ones usually that I work with. So a lot of my stuff was cancelled this past year, which was really a shame. I was due to do a baby naming for twins, which I was so excited about, and that couldn't happen. And actually, by the time we get to do that, they're going to be toddlers. So it might even be an 18th birthday rite of passage. I don't know. We'll see. I'd been asked to do a ceremony for a memorial bench in RHS Wisley, and that hasn't been able to happen either. So anyway, yeah, I have. However, this past year been particularly busy with funerals, and that's just unfortunately a very sad sign of the times. And it's quite a difficult one because we're not actually very good at talking about death. But a recent survey said that 10 out of 10 people are going to die. So I'm not quite sure why we're not so very good at talking about it, but maybe it just brings the tone down a little bit. I find it almost quite normal to talk about death because I am spending a lot of time with bereaved families, and I do my absolute best to help them achieve a funeral service and try to help them achieve the ceremony and funeral that they need. And I do think that is hugely, hugely important, because I have come across families where there perhaps has not been a body, never been found, or where somebody has put in their will that they want to donate their physical remains to science. So once again, there's no funeral. And my experience is that those families have struggled because they haven't had the chance to have that communal goodbye. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I did want to say as well that although I have been doing so many funerals, I did manage to do one wedding last year. And everybody who knew that I was going to do a wedding was going, yay, that's great, that's great, that's brilliant, it'd be so lovely to do something happy. And what they didn't realise was actually I was contacted on the Tuesday night, and the wedding happened on the Thursday afternoon, and I turned it around and wrote it that quickly because the gentleman in question had been with his partner for a very long time, but was dying, and that was the little window that he had to come out of the hospice. And he was so terminally ill, and we did it. And he has since died, and I've just had the most beautiful message from his widow, just to say that the wedding was everything they'd hoped it would be. So it was, it's just so important. And that's something else as well, that even at the happiest times, joy and sorrow walk together. They are, the one balances the other out. So, there's always the dark strands and the light. So, yeah. So it won't surprise you then to know that my husband jokingly calls me the Grim Reaper, which I think is a bit unkind, but anyway. But when we talk about funerals and rituals, the rituals are as old as the human race itself, and there have been things that archaeologists have uncovered. So they've uncovered Neanderthal graves where flowers have very, very carefully been laid with the person. So that whole ritual just around flowers is so old. And we all have different rituals and different things that we do. And it's just so important. So, rosemary, that's one. Yeah, and it smells amazing too. So it's rosemary for remembrance, but it's also for clarity of thought. So it's about actually bringing those beautiful memories to mind. So the funeral then is actually, it's an initiation into mourning. And a good funeral is of immense, immense value to those left behind. And when things don't go to plan, I think that can leave problems. And I experienced it actually very, very recently when I was watching remotely the funeral of my best friend's sister. And in normal circumstances, I would have been with her. I would have been there. And it was a Catholic service in a big church, and it was streamed, and they didn't turn the sound on. So, and it's just so sad because you don't get a second go at that. So, you know, I was absolutely devastated for her, and but there was nothing that could be done, and that is just one of those things. So the funeral is so special because it gives you an opportunity to come together. And I have a quote which I'm particularly fond of. Brené Brown said, I have to read this: "There is a magic in the shared community, a sensation of sacredness that happens when we are part of something that is bigger than us." And death is very definitely bigger than us. And I've got an affirmation that I'd really like to share with you. So perhaps if you don't mind, I'd like to invite you just to make sure that your feet are firmly on the ground and close your eyes. And I'd like to read this with you. And it's an affirmation for facing fear of death. Divine Spirit, Creator of all, in your great mercy, I ask that you set me free from my fear of death. For there is nothing to fear in a journey back to a place called home. Nothing to fear in entering the light of love. I place my trust in you to look after those I leave behind and hold them in your unending love and care. For I am only ever a heartbeat away, there when they call out my name, until we meet again in the place of one love. Amen. And I think that affirmation is really, really powerful. So I know that many of you are healers and therapists. So in everyday life, you will be coming face to face with mortality and recognizing the beauty and the fragility of life. And in your day-to-day dealings, you may be called upon to help to deal with the bereaved. And you may also be called upon to help the dying. And these are difficult things. And one of the things I found really, really helpful when I was training, and I still keep it very much in mind, was thinking about how people in these situations are feeling. And then actually thinking about what we as healers have to offer them. And I sort of think of it about in terms of two buckets, if you like, that everything, there's balance. We need balance in all things. So I think about what's in the bucket of the bereaved, and then I think about what I have in my bucket that can help them. And I think anybody who is broken, and the bereaved are broken, they, you know, it cracks you apart, I think. And people also facing their own mortality, their bucket could be absolutely bubbling over with all sorts of emotions and states of mind. And I actually took some time to draw my bucket and put all the things that were in it. And it was a huge list, things like chaos, surreal, lost, broken, dark, depressed, angry, relief, wet and snotty, ugly, silent, memory loss. It just went on and on. It's a big, big old list. There's so many things there. But then I think, you know, as therapists and healers, we also have our bucket. And just looking at the faces in front of me, I know that you can see some beautiful smiles, you can see compassion, you can see patience, you're all listening, really listening. The caring, the nurturing, the empowering, the truthfulness, the honesty, the calm, the tact, the diplomacy, that creating a safe space, that really, really is just bringing so much comfort to people in need. So, yeah, really do think about your buckets. Think about what you've got in your buckets, because those are gifts. Those are gifts that come from in here for you to share. I also wanted to talk briefly about what happens when somebody does die, because there very often is a temptation to try and hurry everything up at great speed. And I've had it where I've had phone calls saying, oh, you know, died this morning and I've already been to the funeral director, and can you do the funeral? Da, 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 da. And you sort of think, just stop, just pause, just take a moment. The worst thing has happened. And sometimes, you know, it might just be better to sit a while and allow grace and blessing in. Just a thought. And of course, this past year, I think there are going to be lots and lots of people who will be struggling, because the virus prevented people spending time with their loved ones. They may not have seen them because of the virus. They may have been separated. So, you know, do talk to those people if you come across them. See what helps them. See what little acts of remembrance or ritual they may have found. And I did work with one lady who could only have a handful of people at her mother's funeral. And what she did was absolutely remarkable, and it was so full of love. And she did little bags. They were so beautiful, these little bags, and she spent ages putting them together. And this little bag was full of all the things that her mum loved. And she sent them to all her mum's friends that were not able to come to the funeral. And they included things like, there were little tea bags with her mum's name on. And it said, "Mum loved a cup of tea, have a cuppa and think of her." There were little bags of seeds. Go and feed the birds and think of Mum, because she loved feeding the little birds. There was a little nightlight candle, a little poem as well, light the candle, think of Mum. There were crystals, there was a little Buddha. There were so many things in this bag, and you could feel the love that had gone into it. And it was so well received from all this lady's friends who were not able to come to the funeral. And she was so sweet, because she gave me one too. And I've got the little Buddha sitting up there. And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. And it just brings it home, I think, that it's love that underpins everything. And it's the love that shines through. So in the past year, and I always think as well that although I've done mainly funerals the past year, I do think that upstairs gives me the ones that I'm supposed to be doing, if that makes sense. I do believe that there's this sort of weave that happens, and that's how it is. So very early January last year, I was asked by a friend if I would talk to a lady who wanted to plan her own funeral. Didn't know anything about this lady, but it was she was a friend of a friend, so I said yes. And I went and met her, and I spent time with her. She was a beautiful woman, 43 years old. Name was Jo, and she had cancer, and that was it. There was no going back. And we spent quite a lot of time together talking about her funeral and what she wanted. She had a little boy of 6 who she wanted very much to be a part of the ceremony. So had to be written, and we talked long and hard and really heart to heart. And the one thing she wanted, she was really concerned about, was that she wanted to have her own words read, because she wanted to say something to her family and to leave her words. And she said, but I don't know who to ask to read them. She said, my best friend's offered, but I'm not sure. And I said to her, well, have you thought about recording it? And she hadn't. So we thought about it, and she wrote her words and said, this is what I want to say. And I wrote the service and said, here's the service. And we sat in her room and we read it to each other, and we both had a good cry. And she recorded her talk, and at the funeral we played it, and it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And when I left her that last time, after we'd read it to each other and she'd recorded what she wanted to say to her family, she said to me, right, I can go now because you've given me peace of mind. So I don't need to see you again, Linda. And I said, oh, don't be daft. Yeah, you'll see me again. And I didn't. She went very, very quickly, a couple of days. But it empowered her. It gave her some control back. And it was so incredibly, wonderfully memorable. And what she recorded is there as a gift for her little boy that will be kept. It was beautiful. And I know that sounds really strange, but it was very, very beautiful. And I think that's somewhere that I'm being pushed to go, because having worked with Jo, I was then asked to go and work with two other people. Both had different terminal illnesses and both passed last year. And I worked with both of them. And so I think upstairs is maybe that I'm being pushed in that direction, and I'm certainly exploring some things with a doula in Canada. So whether I'll do something online or whether I'll go to Canada, I don't know, but I think I'm being just directed that way a little bit. But yeah, and then I just wanted to share this one with you as well. So on Monday of last week, I wrote a funeral service and delivered a funeral ceremony. And two sisters had got in touch with me, and they'd lost their mum just very recently. And we had a long consultation on Zoom. And this is one of the things that's made life as a celebrant so much more difficult, because normally you would go and you would sit with a family, and you can't. You are doing it on Zoom. You don't get the opportunity to look at photographs or things like that. So it's a Zoom call. But talked to these two lovely, lovely sisters. And in the course of the conversation, it came out that there should have been a third sister. There was a middle sister who was stillborn. And in the course of the conversation, they told me that there had never been a funeral for their sister. Back in the day, that didn't happen. It was just not spoken about. And this beautiful stillborn baby was just taken, and that was it. So I talked to them and said, well, maybe this is something we could write now, because this is obviously a family hurt. This is something that's there. It's in your family history, and it's perhaps it's something that we can address. So we very much talked about this girl this little baby girl in the funeral service, and we addressed the love that had been held for her while she was expected. And we acknowledged the pain and the hurt when she was stillborn. And we included some beautiful words as part of the formal funeral service. And they were just over the moon with that. They were so delighted. And actually outside afterwards, when we were talking to the, just talking as we'd come out of the crematorium chapel, the elder sister said, oh, I'm getting married next year. I'd really like you to do my service, would you? This is just quite surreal now, because we're talking weddings and funerals, and it's a bit bizarre. So anyway, yeah. So I know I've talked an awful lot about death and dying, and these are they are so real, and it's something that you will have come across, maybe will deal with, but yeah, it's a hard one. I wanted to share a reading with you, and I apologize if you've already heard it or if you know it, but it's something that sits well with me. And one of the ladies that I worked with last year who had a terminal illness, she was a birth doula. That's what she trained to do. And this reading was included as part of her funeral service, actually, because it was so appropriate. And it's actually called Two Babies. So if you've heard it, I apologize, but if you haven't. So in a mother's womb, there were two babies, and one asked the other, "Do you believe in life after delivery?" The other replied, "Why, of course, there has to be something after delivery. Maybe we're here to prepare ourselves for what we will be later." "Nonsense," said the first. There isn't life after delivery. What kind of life could that be?" And the second said, "Well, I don't know, but maybe there will be more light than there is in here. And maybe we will walk with our legs and eat through our mouths. Maybe we'll have other senses that we can't understand now." And the first replied, "Oh, that's absurd. Walking is impossible. And eating with our mouths, ridiculous. The umbilical cord supplies nutrition and everything we need. But the umbilical cord is so short. Life after delivery is to be logically excluded." But the second insisted, "Well, I think there is something, and maybe it is different than it is here. Maybe we won't need this physical cord anymore." And the first replied, "Nonsense. And moreover, if there is life, then why has no one ever come back from there? Delivery is the end of life, and in the after delivery, there is nothing but darkness and silence and oblivion. It takes us nowhere." "Well, I don't know," said the second, "but certainly we will meet Mother, and she will take care of us." The first replied, "Mother? You actually believe in Mother? That's laughable. If Mother actually existed, then where is she now?" The second said, "She is all around us. We're surrounded by her. It is in her that we live. Without her, this world would not and could not exist." Said the first, "Well, I don't see her, so it's only logical that she doesn't exist." To which the second replied, "Sometimes when you're in silence and you focus and you really listen, you can perceive her presence and you can hear her loving voice calling down from above." So that's the two stories, the two babies story. So to that end, I just say that listen deeply, sit in the power, and just remember that you're a creature of gravity now, but you're also a being of light. So thank you for listening to me, and thank you, Suzanne, for inviting me, and thank you very much for giving me your time. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask, then I'd be really happy to talk, but thank you.
Goodness, that was amazing, Linda. Thank you so much. I'm finding it difficult to find words. I'm so emotional. But that was beautiful, really lovely, well delivered, and really speaking from your heart. I can just feel every single word of what you're saying. So that was lovely. So I'll let somebody else ask a question before I start blubbing on on Zoom. Anyone? Karen, did you have a question?
Muted.
Oh, sorry. Well, it's not really a question, but just to say I can't tell you how moved I am by most everything you said. I feel very comforted, because you're right, we don't talk about death, and it's one of those things. I feel so comforted that someone like you is doing this, because it just makes sense. I think you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, and you're truly a gift, I think, to people who are in that situation. I know I don't find it easy to talk to people who've lost people, and clearly you've just got a gift. So thank you for doing what you do. It's such an important thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. I mean, it is really difficult, and we don't talk about death, but I think the the things that are helpful to know really is that, I mean, I can remember when we lost our son, and this woman came up to me and said, "Oh, I know just how you feel because my dog died." And I can remember just sort of standing there thinking, I really don't know what to say to you. I just don't know what to say to you. And then sort of 3 months later, she had a new puppy. Now, I know that for lots of people, losing their pet is sort of absolutely the worst thing in the world. But for me at the time, I was sort of, seriously, this is what you're saying to me? And I think really the message is that if you don't know what to say, don't say anything, because hug or just a little therapeutic touch when we're allowed, goes a long way.
Yeah.
That goes really a long way.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. This is me, Sheila Crouch. Sorry, my camera's off. I think it's quite, well, it was moving, but what I think the nicest thing is, it's the name, being a celebrant, because it's about celebrating. And we don't actually, we talk about mourning and things like that, but when it comes to death, we should really celebrate it. We're celebrating somebody's life. We're celebrating them moving on. And I think there's far too much. Probably the real problem is that we have this sort of thing about losing somebody rather than having had them. And I always feel that, with loss, well, what have you actually lost? Because that person's gone. All you could possibly lose is your chance to do something. And that's why I think, if we spent more time actually doing what we can while people are alive, we wouldn't have the regrets afterwards. And I think, people should talk more about death. It shouldn't be seen necessarily as a sad thing, but a celebration that that person has done what they've done with their life and they're moving on. So I think it's a lovely title.
It's it's an interesting one, Sheila, because very often people will say about the funeral, "Oh, we want it to be a celebration of life," but it's like everything, there is a balance, because where you've had great love, you have great sorrow. So yes, you want to celebrate, but you can't do that without acknowledging the sorrow as well. So it is very much about trying to create a safe environment that is honest and truthful, because that's the other thing, if somebody was really a nasty old grouch, you can't suddenly write a funeral ceremony and turn them into St. Francis of Assisi. Doesn't work. Nobody recognizes.
You probably celebrate they've gone.
But it's how you phrase things. You can be very tactful. You can give a nod to something. And it's just having the discretion. But yeah, I mean, increasingly people are saying we want a celebration, we want the funny stories, but you do have to acknowledge the sadness as well. But the other thing I always make a point of saying is that relationships don't stop because somebody has died. There will always be continuing bonds. And this is where ritual becomes so important. So, around anniversaries, around birthdays, things like that, they're really important. And I mean, I walked with a dear friend this afternoon, and her husband, an equally dear friend, unfortunately passed on the 29th of December, and I did his funeral, which was one of the hardest ones because he was somebody I loved very dearly, and that was at Clandon Wood in January. And she was saying to me that because his mum died literally a month before he did, from COVID, sadly, his mum, but so they had there was this two family funerals very close together. And she was saying to me, "Oh, it was lovely," she said, "because the two Robins came." And so the fat Robin is his mum and the thin Robin is him, you know. So it just really made me laugh, and that gives her so much comfort. And this is where, you know, our connection with spirit is right, because I don't think, I mean, my own view is that you know, they're not the Robins, but they are probably instrumental in making the Robins, or getting the Robins to be there at the right time.
Yeah.
You
well,
know,
it's a sort of symbology, isn't it?
so yeah, and it is whatever works for you. It's what gives you,
Yeah.
brings you comfort. And your relationships don't end, they continue always. It's just
yeah.
different. They just continue in a different way, you know.
Yeah.
And that, for a bereaved parent as well, that's always a difficult question, one to fence, because one of the things we're very good at saying is, well, how many children do you have? And you've got to choose your response, gauge your audience. And I'm much better at it now, far more resilient than I was, because you know, when you tell somebody that actually, yes, your child died, it can, yeah, it's just so shocking. So, you know, you actually almost set the tone for the response you want.
Yeah.
And I might choose not to, you see, to say I've got one child denies the existence of my older son. So I don't tend not to say that. But it depends on who I'm talking to, trying to judge it.
I mean, I know several people who've lost children, and they always talk about them as though they're still alive. Not like, you know, they're in the room with them, but they talk about what they did, their experience with them, things that happened. So they're keeping them alive in the way that they are still part of the family. They are still part of their memories and their own life, I guess.
That's really important, Sheila, because you do realise that, you know, the memories and the photographs and things that you have, they're finite.
Yeah.
You know, there won't be news stories about my son's life, for instance.
No.
So it is really important, and one of the greatest gifts you can do is listen to those stories and support your friends in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you. And Julia had a question. Is Julia still here? Because I know she had to leave at 9.
Yeah, no, I think she's just gone, actually.
Okay, so her question is, she wanted to know how you managed to deal with the sadness when dealing with funerals frequently, and that it was a beautiful, moving talk. Thank you.
One of the things I've become much better at is recognizing what are my issues and my emotions and what are somebody else's. So I can't take on somebody else's grief, because that's their journey. Yeah. So I can empathize with them, I can sympathize with them, but I can't take on their grief, because that is their journey for them to work through. And also I'm very aware that our areas of greatest spiritual growth are through our darkest times.
Yeah.
So, you know, there will be gifts within that darkness.
It's a process, isn't it? Grieving. It's not, you know, if people haven't been through that process, it's sometimes like they think, oh well, a year's gone by, 2 years has gone by, but it takes one little trigger and you're back in. It's a spiral, I feel, that you're in, and then you can be out of it for a long time, and then you'll have a moment. Yeah, and it just takes time, and as much time as people need. There's no time limit on it, is there?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think with grief as well, that unless somebody's been through it, you can tend, it sometimes gets treated like a disease, like chicken pox. You know, oh, it's been 3 months, you should be feeling better by now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Felt quite avoided when my mum died by some people, but I realised it's just because people didn't know what to say. But I prefer people to say, I don't know what to say, but I'm here, than say nothing, I think. But
Yeah.
I wasn't, you know, going to be upset at people, because I realised that people feel incredibly uncomfortable, like you said earlier. But I tried to make a point now, because I know the feeling of trying to just add something, you know, even just a few words when somebody's lost somebody. So yeah.
And actually, one of the biggest things, and I always say this to the families that I'm working with, because sometimes they're in such a state, they don't know what they want included in the funeral service. They don't really know what to say. And usually, quite often, there are real nuggets of gold in sympathy cards that have been sent. Because when somebody takes the time to sit and write something,
Yeah.
you know, they've usually thought and considered, and it's very easy to write a card and say, you know, to, from, but actually to take the time to write in that card.
Yeah.
And there are usually some beautiful quotes and things in there.
Personal, and actually you can feel the love coming off and the support coming off. I mean, it's just people holding the space is enough, even if somebody just comes and sits with you. And I had dinners cooked, you know, my mum passed, we're trying to manage my dad, and people were bringing groceries, and it was just lovely, you know, just a text message, I won't come in and intrude, but there's a load of shopping on your doorstep, or, you know, that kind of thing was just, you know, really lovely, just to know that people had actually made the effort to go out of their way to care for you was just really, really nice.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think that's absolutely amazing that people, that's just, and people are fantastic, you know. I mean, for all the sort of silly comments, I mean, we had a ridiculous thing from an airline because Tom died in New Zealand, and we tried to sort out one of the unused air tickets, and we're told by Virgin that, oh, actually no, they didn't refund those shows. That was actually what they said to us. So just disgusting. So I would never ever fly Virgin on principle, ever. But
I want to now
I
either.
mean, that was just one person,
gosh,
in an office that, you know. But for all that, there were probably 50 people saying and doing wonderful things. So again, it is just that balance, isn't it?
it's complete lack of thought, isn't it, with some people, and you know, sometimes obviously not intended to hurt, but people don't even just sit with it for a moment and think, like, what would this feel like?
Yeah, no, there was no thought. It's just a shock response.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, probably a bit of an issue with some of the big companies, because everything is process driven. So, you know, as soon as something is not in the process, they don't know how to deal with it. And it's just about being human, isn't it? It's about humanity and compassion and love, because that's what underpins everything else. And if you treat people with love and with respect, then generally speaking, it will come back to you.
Yeah, that's lovely. My mum's at Clarendon Wood, as you know. So it's just, if anybody doesn't know, it's a natural burial ground in Clarendon, and it's just goes through all the seasons, and sometimes it's really bleak up there, and bare in the winter, and then other times they've got sheep there which are there to mow the lawn. So everything's natural, and they use a cart to take the funeral across the ground, so that it's nothing is damaged, and they've got a beautiful pond and so much wildlife there now. I mean, my mum's been there for 7.5 years, so it was, you know, very new. It'd only been there a year, I think, when my mum was when we put her ashes there, and now it's just, you know, the tree that we put her ashes by is still there. Some of the other trees didn't quite make it, but we decided mum was there trying to keep it going and tidy up, and like she would do if she was alive. So it's always so nice to just go over there and sit on the ground and just be in the space. In, you know, you can see the Surrey Hills all around you. It's just so beautiful. So it's nice. If you haven't visited there, you can go there for a walk. It's really nice. So let's see if there's any questions in the chat group. So Rosemary said, do you want to come off mute and chat?
Hello, how are you all? No, the story about the baby I really enjoyed, because the same thing happened in my family, that a baby died and wasn't given a funeral, and then at a later stage, 50 years later, it had its burial. So it really touched me what you said, and thank you very much, Linda.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's lovely.
But that was a deep family hurt, and it just needed to be addressed.
No, what they did was, at a later stage, if babies died, they were just taken away, and then the graveyard at a later stage did a special plot for all of the babies, and then some of the babies got claimed and they got names, and sadly some of the babies weren't claimed.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
thanks for telling the story.
Oh, that's lovely, Rosemary. Thank you. Faye, did you want to?
You're very welcome.
Come off mute, Faye, and ask Linda.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were talking about how people have a really hard time talking about death here, I was wondering if it's a cultural thing, because it's that very British, you know, the amount of times I've been told, oh, you're doing really well, because I literally couldn't speak or express emotion because I was dead inside. And everyone's like, oh, you're holding it together so well. And you're just like, what the fuck? No, I'm not. But that's how people kind of measure it. Oh, you're getting up and going to your job and you're continuing. And you're like, yeah, I don't have a choice. I have to pay rent. You can't just shut down, you know? And that's kind of like, people measure that, I think, in the West. We suppress everything.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I was just wondering if you worked with people who've been grieving from other cultures or from other parts of the world, and if the process differs at all?
There's certainly people within the support group that I facilitate that come from other places, but I think you're right. I think it is a cultural thing to some extent, because you know we so very often sort of say, oh, don't cry, here, have a tissue, don't cry. And actually tears are good. I think tears is just love creeping out of the corners of your eyes. So
yeah, when I have people come to clinic, Linda, and they say, oh, sorry, I'm crying, I'm like, no, this is your moment, cry, let it all out. It's all okay in this space.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, because my own feeling, my own experience was that I was like a pressure cooker. I had so much emotion, and when we lost Tom, and you never quite knew which valve was going to blow off, you know, or what was going to happen. Because so for me, the car was a really safe place to howl and cry. And at the time, my mum was in and out of hospital in Kent, so I was spending long time on the M25 going backwards and forwards. So late at night, so that was a very, very good place to sort of howl, because nobody could see you in the dark in the car. And the shower, amazing place to cry in the shower, and cleansing. So but yeah, we don't, and we do sort of say, oh no, please don't cry, have tissues, have handkerchiefs. But crying is good, and dehydrating, you do need to remember to drink a lot.
Yeah. And we've also, you know, been said to our children at some point, come on, it's all right, don't cry. And actually, no, with my children, I'm not like, no, cry if you need to. Whereas, you know, we've grown up with our parents sort of saying, oh, here, have a sweet, or let's make a cup of tea, stop crying. But I tend to try and encourage the opposite, just simply, you know, from my own experience and because I'm a therapist probably. But yeah, you try and bring it to like all emotions are normal. And when it's hung on to is when we get poorly.
Exactly, disease.
So scared of crying and thinking that it's never going to stop, and it is uncomfortable and ugly and snotty, but it's cleansing, isn't it? It's healing. It's, you know, and it's okay. It's just, you know, there's not a lot of people, unless you're used to working with that know how to handle somebody falling apart, and then often that's about them, not the person that needs to grieve, because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that grief will bring gifts to you, Faye. Absolutely, it will bring gifts to you. So I don't know if you know the story of Kintsugi, do you? Have you heard?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so the legend was that there was a Japanese emperor and he collected the finest porcelain, and one day his favorite little bowl got broken, so he gave it to his craftsman and said, fix this. So they took it away and brought it back, and the repair was particularly ugly, and he said, no good, go away, sort it out. And they went away for years. They were away with this bowl, and eventually they brought back a bowl that had been painstakingly repaired, and all the little pieces had been put back together with the finest gossamer gold. And this bowl was a thing of such incredible beauty, but the light was able to shine into it and also out of it. It became quite translucent. And I use that story quite a lot in things that I do with bereavement support, because I think when you are deeply grieving, you are cracked wide open, and you will put the pieces together again, but you will be so much more of a healing light, because you can give so much more in terms of empathy and compassion and understanding, lots and lots of different things. So, and that's a sort of Kintsugi analogy. That makes sense.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. I think it was Kay who said on a talk not long ago, there's Leonard Cohen, is she still there? It was the reference to Leonard Cohen, wasn't it? And the light, and I can't remember. I should know it. I love him.
I think it's, sorry, can I just interrupt?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. Leonard Cohen, one of his lyrics, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light comes in.
That's it.
You know, absolutely agree with everything said about cracks and bowls, but also so much more powerful to speak from your own experience than from what you have learned or what the theory is or what you've seen from other people. If you have been cracked, you know, and that knowledge infuses you with a wisdom that you can then pass on. And that's just so empowering for the person you're talking to. It's not you, it is coming from a different place, because that is where the grief came from, the crack came from. It takes all of you out of it and it just gives. And that's the power.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Linda, by the way, that was brilliant. Loved it.
And thank you for your comments, Kay, because I think that's absolutely right. Because it makes you authentic. You know, I'm not very good at chit chat, small talk anymore. Not interested, actually, because, you know, all that gossip and what's that all about? Not interested. It's about authenticity and being real. Can I show you something? I was due to go down and this was 3 years ago, maybe. I was due to go down and see my my godson, and his mum had said to me, "Oh, really excited because you know, when we were on holiday, he made you a present." And when I got there, they were, oh gosh, the dog was in disgrace. She was really upset. The dog had jumped up onto the table and knocked my present off, and my present was broken. So the dog was in the corner, and this was my little present, this little angel. And I don't know if you can see, but it's all stuck together again. she made her partner stick it together because it was his dog. And she said, "I'm so sorry because this angel is all broken." And I said, "Well, you know, we're all broken angels, aren't we? It's absolutely perfect. It's perfectly imperfect. I love it." And I've done a couple of services, and this has come along as a little exhibit A, because it just sums it up. That we're all broken and we learn from the breaks, don't we?
That's so nice. That's so lovely. Has anyone else got a question or anything to say? Anyone else want to speak? If not, I have another question, if that's okay. Do you do blessings? So after somebody's had a service years ago and somebody might want a blessing for their loved one, do you do those kind of things as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely. I like writing blessings, and I like looking at all the Celtic blessings as well, because there's some beautiful ones out there. I mean, there really is, and yeah, it's just so important. It's just so important.
What's really lovely at Clandon Wood, which you know, but I'll tell everyone else because it's so nice, is when they're open, they have celebrations throughout the years, and they do the winter and summer solstice. And at Christmas, they have a tree, and you can go and write on a star or heart words to your loved ones. And it's just so nice seeing everybody else there, and they have kind of tea and coffee and cake, and people can come and have a chat for 20 minutes. And then in the summer one, the summer solstice, I took my daughter to the year after my mum died, and it was lovely because we were all making flower mandalas and taking pictures and stuff, and I've got all those pictures on my camera roll of Maddie when she was younger. It's just so nice. And now when we go and see my mum, we take rose petals, because roses remind me of my mum, and we kind of just scatter them all around her tree and think about her telling us that we're making a mess, but they smell nice. So yeah, it's nice to have those rituals. It's just such a nice space to go. You can either go there and be completely on your own with it, or there's always somebody friendly to talk to, or somebody else there to, you know, smile at. And it's just beautiful, isn't it? And you've probably been to all of those ceremonies. I haven't made it to a sun up on solstice or a bit early.
No. I mean, I think that's for the logs. I'm a bit of an owl, so
yeah. It'd be nice to make that one day, to watch the sun come up on the
absolutely. London is really beautiful, and it's just so close to the sanctuary. The two are actually quite close together. So if you haven't been to Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary, I don't know if all of you have.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a definite for everybody to go.
It's a beautiful place when you are able to get up there, and the grounds are beautiful. They're surrounded by, there's some ancient woodland, which is proper Old English bluebell woods, and it's just very, very gorgeous. So I can't wait to be back up there and healing, and seeing the healing community again. So
just being in there is just lovely, isn't it? I've been to a couple of weddings as well, which were nice because they're out in a great big marquee on the lawn, and their fairs that they have, and it's just all really very special, isn't it?
It's my favourite place to do a wedding ceremony, and I've done quite a lot up there now. But that's the one place, because I am a volunteer registrar there as such. So as a celebrant, I can do a really beautiful ceremony, but I can also that's the only place I can do the legal paperwork with the registrar hat on.
Oh, okay.
But I can do that there.
So for other places, people would have to have a registrar as well, would they?
Yeah, or what some people do, and that's happened when I've done weddings abroad, is you can get a very little window with the registrar. I think it costs about 40 quid, and you literally just go in to do the legal work. So the couples that I've worked with haven't looked at that as being their wedding day. It's literally the legal the little legal bit of paperwork that has to be done. And if you think about it, registrars, when you register a birth or a death, you would do that after the event. You go and see the registrar afterwards, just to do that little bit of legal paperwork. So yeah.
That reminds me, I went to Poland a few years ago to celebrate one of my friends, her wedding, and she got married in the middle of the woods, up a mountain, and we were all in a big circle, and everybody was dressed in white, and everybody had flower garlands in their hair. It was just the most beautiful ceremony, and rose petals, and it was just beautiful. And yeah, the next day they went down into the town and did the legal part of their celebration. So yeah, I'd forgotten that part, but what a lovely idea. We should have known all of that back then.
Yeah, no, I was really lucky because I did a wedding in Croatia, on the side of the Adriatic, and it was just amazing. It was just so fantastic, and so that was a nice thing to do. Go and do a wedding out there. So
Oh, lovely. What a nice trip. Be nice to do that again soon. You'll be so busy with weddings, hopefully, when we're allowed out, that they'll all be queuing up. Everybody's waiting, aren't they, I guess?
yeah, it's, I think everybody's just in bated breath and not quite sure what's happening. So my own son was supposed to get married in France last year.
Wow.
That's postponed till this July, but it will depend what happens with France, because
Of
you know,
course.
whether their borders or not, I don't know. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Anybody else have any?
I think Martin, he's just written one. He's my partner. He's part of the Harry Edwards. He's the chair of the trustees. He's just vanished now, but I think he was really inspired by the reading of the twin story. And you know, Martin.
Yes, yeah. I thought that was Martin sitting there.
Yes, I mean, sort of listening in. I don't know whether he was allowed to, but anyway, he was there.
Yeah, of course.
He was saying, can he use your reading? Or he's doing the Healing Minute on Friday. Can he use your reading on Friday? Do you mind?
Of course I can. I'll email it through.
Okay. It was nice. I don't know whether anyone else takes part, or you can listen to the every day they've been having Healing Minutes, and it's just all wonderful, isn't it? I always enjoy your Cygnus, although I can't always listen to it, but it's obviously recorded and that. And I just wonder where you get all your fantastic inspirational speakers from. And
upstairs sorts it out. Everything has always flowed. It's never been a difficult thing finding the speakers. I think they come to me. So yeah, I just thank upstairs, and I sort of think, well, we're in the flow because it's all just happening. So
they've been, yes, very wonderful people. I really enjoy them. It's brought a lot of
well, next Wednesday it's Wonderful Suzanne, and then at the end of March, Kay is coming to talk as well. So
my talk will be different to body talk as well. It's a different aspect.
Tell as many people as possible really about the hair. I'll let you hand over. I'll hand over to Martin now. He's better at speaking than I am. Oh my goodness.
No, I just
I'm out of my comfort zone here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Linda, for a lovely talk, and for your kind words about the sanctuary. And also, I'm doing the Healing Minute on Friday on Facebook. Do you think I could use that reading, or is that something that is special to your services?
Of course, you can have it. I will send it to you.
That's
Mark.
very kind of you. Really, I'd never heard it before, and it's just wonderful. It just encapsulates what we hear so often about life after death. It's fantastic.
Right, I included it when I did this lovely lady's funeral. She was a birth doula, and that's what she had done, and she'd given so much for babies, and I shared it with her, and she said, oh, it's fantastic. So that went into her funeral service, and the funeral director came and spoke to me afterwards and said, I go to so many funerals, I've never heard that before.
Oh wow. Who wrote it originally? Do you know?
No idea. I just have a huge amount of resources that I've gathered over the years, and they just seem to pop up at the right time. But again, I just thank upstairs.
You're doing a great job. We're privileged to have you as part of our team as well.
No, it's a privilege to be a part of the team. So yeah. Thank you.
Linda, did you want to say about the Healing Minute quickly?
Yeah. So
Martin,
every morning, the Healing Minute has also gone out live on Facebook, and it's on Facebook every day, and you can catch it later as well. You can get it on catch up if you want to, but there's a team of healers, and it starts at 9:55 and it runs probably about 10-15 minutes. And it is a proper healing minute, so you're welcome to join in and send healing and love out to everybody who needs it, to the world.
that's the Harry Edwards Facebook page, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary Facebook page. And they're a lovely lot, all those lovely healers. They're a wonderful little team, and it goes out every day. And in fact, there's all sorts of things happening. They're doing Alan's doing a special healing morning, isn't he, on Sunday, which will coincide with Mother's Day, which is a difficult day for lots of people for different reasons. So yeah,
Tana's just said that the baby story would be lovely on Mothering Sunday. Did you want to say something, Tana? Because I saw you had your hand up a minute ago. No, sorry, putting you on the spot. So yeah, it would be really lovely. So, wow, gosh, what a great talk. So
well, thank you. Sorry that it was on a difficult subject.
Not at all. Actually, it's really, really important, and it's hugely uncomfortable, and it's hugely emotional, and in varying different degrees, all of us, for our own reasons, will have had an emotional ride through, but it's a very important topic, and to understand it fully, it's something that we need to think about how we do deal with that. And the, like you say, the rituals, I really like that idea. It's really comforting when I see a robin. That's always my mum coming, or a feather, or whatever that is. It's just comforting, and then I can have a chat. So
yeah,
Mum.
it doesn't matter what it is. It can be feathers, it can be pennies, it can be robins, it can be something that's played on the radio, it can just be a feeling. You might just sit in the power and feel the hug around you. It's whatever it is, it's always right for you at that particular time, and it happens when you need it, not when you want it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you came to talk to us today. Have you talked at the Harry Edwards at the Cygnus?
No, okay. I sort of half spoke one morning when there was an issue with the speaker that was out of our control.
I think I might be having words with Teresa. I think I might get Teresa on the case.
I did speak to on the one of the healing evenings. So yeah,
I think that would be really lovely to do as a talk for the Cygnus.
I do go in and talk to the college, actually, the healing, to the new healers. So I've gone in on to several of the cohorts that are training and talked to them on the subject.
Lovely.
And actually got them working, actually drew the buckets that I talked about and made them put all the things in the bucket of the bereaved, and then made them think about all the things they had in their own buckets. So we had the flip chart going.
Great idea. Can you could you put in the group chat your contact details?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will add it to the pages, the Telegram, or type it in the Telegram or WhatsApp group if you want to, if you want to do that instead. I
don't mind, actually. I'll do it on here.
Yeah, put it on here, and then I'll copy it into the group so that everybody's got your details, because it's just nice to have the contact. Tana's put in the chat group. That was incredible. Something I was very humbled to listen to and would not have wanted to have missed it. Can't wait to be back with you at Harry's. Thank you, Lynn, Suzanne and Karen. That's lovely. Okay, so there's Linda's details if anybody wants to write those down and find out about the groups that Linda runs. And if you know anybody that needs Linda's expertise, then it's an invaluable resource to have you as a person in the world, Linda, truly, because it's very personal, and I really like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
You're
thank
welcome.
you everybody for coming, and yeah, what a great group. I really felt very, humbled is the only word for it. So thank you again, Linda, and thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Remind me, Karen, who's
we've got Vina and she's been in the group since last year. I know her really well, and she is an expert in air quality. So she's going to talk about air quality and how we can improve our air quality in our homes, which is something that not a lot of people know about, and obviously very important for your health. So hopefully people can make that on, I think it's the 22nd, isn't it?
2 weeks today. So yeah, I'll pop it up in the chat anyway. If anyone's got any questions for Linda, or I'll put her details in the Telegram and on the WhatsApp, because we've still got a few people on there at the moment, then yeah, far away, pop your questions in, and Linda can pop on there and answer them for you.
I will do. I will do.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a good 2 weeks, and I'll see you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're still recording, darling. Is that still?
Yeah, sorry.